Welcome to History Stories Dose, one story 10 parts, subscribe now.
Long before he became a legendary conqueror, Alexander was a teenager struggling under the weight of impossible expectations. He was born into the Kingdom of Macedonia, a minor state that his father, King Philip II, forged into a dominant military power. Philip was a pragmatic, battle-hardened ruler who demanded absolute perfection from his son. Alexander also faced an entirely different kind of pressure from his mother, Queen Olympias. She filled his head with prophecies of thunderbolts, divine bloodlines, and a destiny tied directly to mythical heroes like Achilles. The young prince realized early on that simply inheriting the crown would not be enough. To survive the fierce Macedonian court, he could not rely on the myths surrounding his family. He had to earn his place through action. Caught between a father demanding flawless military execution and a mother demanding literal divinity, Alexander had to either crack under the pressure or forge himself into an entirely new kind of leader. The first test of Alexander's potential came at age 13. Recognizing that brute force alone could not govern a nation, King Philip hired Aristotle, one of the sharpest minds in Greece, to educate his son. Aristotle trained the prince to look past the obvious. He taught Alexander a rigorous curriculum centered on logic, geography, and science, emphasizing careful observation over immediate physical reaction. That mental discipline was tested when a massive black horse named Bucephalus was brought to the king. The animal was wild, violently throwing every experienced rider who tried to mount it. This overhead diagram illustrates what Alexander observed that the older men missed. The horse was simply terrified by the sharp, moving silhouette of its own shadow. By turning the animal gently toward the sun, Alexander eliminated the shadow from its field of view. He spoke softly to calm the animal, mounted it, and rode flawlessly across the field. Watching this, Philip embraced his son, declaring that Macedonia was entirely too small for him. Taming Bucephalus demonstrated that Alexander possessed the rare intellectual patience to diagnose and solve problems that traditional Macedonian strength could not. 3 years later, the stakes escalated from a single horse to the entire nation. While away on a military campaign, Philip left his 16-year-old son acting as regent of Macedonia. Seeing a teenager left in charge, a neighboring tribe instantly sensed an opportunity. Assuming the young prince would freeze or wait for his father's veteran command, they rebelled against Macedonian rule. Alexander immediately mobilized the army, marched directly into the rebellious territory, and crushed the uprising himself. To ensure the region remained stable, he expelled the hostile forces, founded a brand new city in the area, and populated it with loyal Macedonian settlers. Handling this border crisis revealed a crucial trait. Alexander showed he was capable of the swift, ruthless administrative decision-making required to govern a volatile state entirely on his own. The final test of his youth took place on the front lines. By age 18, Alexander transitioned from acting regent to a core battlefield commander alongside his father at the pivotal Battle of Chaeronea in 338 BC. This tactical map shows the layout at Chaeronea, where Alexander was assigned a highly dangerous objective, leading the charge with the heavy cavalry against a massive, unified coalition of Greek city-states. He drove deep into the opposing infantry, successfully severed the enemy lines, and created the critical gap that allowed the rest of the Macedonian forces to secure total victory. His performance on that field solidified his reputation. Word spread rapidly across Greece, marking the young prince as an undeniable military prodigy. Chaeronea proved that the philosophical student and the sharp administrator was also perfectly willing to risk his own life to execute bold tactical maneuvers in combat. Before he was even 20 years old, Alexander had successfully synthesized the sharp logic of Aristotle, the administrative boldness of a monarch, and the raw courage of a frontline warrior. Yet internally, he felt confined. Philip had spent decades rapidly expanding Macedonian territory, leaving his son with a persistent fear that there would be no great achievements left for him to claim. Conquering neighboring tribes and Greek city-states only expanded his appetite. He desired a legacy that would eclipse his father's and secure his name in history. He turned his attention eastward, toward the Persian Empire. This was a superpower of massive continental scale, possessing vast wealth and a military force that most of the ancient world considered unbeatable. But Alexander's entire youth had been a sequence of solving problems that older, more experienced men thought were unsolvable. To a prince who had tamed wild beasts and shattered armies, the Persian Empire was not an untouchable threat. It was simply the next test.